What would you like?
Well, seeing as I'm right-handed and that's on the right and it's closest to me, I'll try that one.
That's the cinnamon whiskey.
Smell it to make sure it's cinnamon.
I'm
if it is, then David's
pretty
right.
confident it's cinnamon.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
You're gonna
cinnamon.
enjoy that.
All right.
Okay.
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna take the rabbit's foot, the moonshine,
No, the rabbit spit.
the rabbit spit. Oh.
Yes.
Rabbit spit.
I'm gonna get this mixed
I'll
up
do
with
the
my water.
whiskey.
Without further ado,
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead.
We are here with Drop the Disc.
We're here with Drop the Disc podcast. My name's David.
And I'm Chris.
We are associates in this podcast, and today we are not going to waste your time talking about ourselves because we have a very exciting guest.
We do.
We're here this week with
Deke Copenhaver.
Mr. Deke Copenhaver, one of, by the way, the first people that gave us the opportunity to interview you. And I don't know if you knew that. You're one of the first people that we ever interviewed.
I did not know that.
So
but
that's
you. Cool.
And
you and Sean are the people in the city that are
Yes.
really taking the chance on us.
But I will say that we had one mic. Then now we
We had
have
one
two.
mic, now we have two. It's a little bit of growth.
And we have a lot more coming for the podcast.
For the future.
Thank you to Nancy Powell.
Yeah.
She is our presenting sponsor for 2020. She is a real estate associate broker with Concierge Real Estate Team. And I say that really fast because that's how I've been practicing it.
You're getting very good.
But it's Concierge Real Estate Team. You can reach her if you're trying to buy or sell a home. You can reach her at nancy@opentoclose.team.
And we really appreciate the relationship with Nancy. As some of you guys that listen at home know, she just helped me buy a house. So that's very exciting for me. And I can personally talk about how she has helped me with the process. But with that aside, we're actually going to let her give you guys a real quick piece of advice on selling in 2020. She's going to talk about selling.
Take it away, Nancy.
2020 is definitely going to be a seller's market. The supply and demand factors in there, low inventory versus number of buyers looking. So that would encourage a lot of sellers to try to get max dollars, if not more, for their home. But you have to be careful with that because if you price it over what it really is its value, you're going to miss out on would-be buyers. You're going to end up in a situation, if you do have somebody willing to pay that amount, that once the appraisal comes in, it's going to be lower, and then you have to renegotiate your offer. So get with a realtor that knows the market well to price your home right so that it will sell and you will have an easy transition.
Thank you, Nancy.
She's a very nice lady.
Yeah.
She is, and you probably have met her. She works with All in Augusta.
Yeah.
She works with the Chamber. She's super involved. I think she sponsored the Young Professionals Party last year.
Yeah. She sponsored a couple events going on in Augusta.
So we're proud to be working with someone that, first of all, that Deke Copenhaver knows by name that she's good.
Yeah.
She is indeed.
So today we're coming to you guys from Second City Distillery.
Yep.
We're very excited. We've got 2 flights in front of us right now, which Deke,
Nice.
by the way, did not know was going to happen.
No.
We sprung this on
I
him.
assumed.
Yeah, come on. Two young guys at a distillery. What do you expect?
Yeah.
So, Deke, what do you got over there? I see you already started on it.
Yeah, I've got the cinnamon flavored whiskey.
Yeah, it's Rick Rack cinnamon whiskey.
Yeah, it's very good.
Would you say it's like an aroma at front and then the taste in the back? Or?
We have a whiskey snob to my left.
Yeah, I'm
Gentlemen.
sorry. I got to.
I would say there's a little bit of both of that. You
Yeah.
definitely get the aroma up front, but you get the taste in back too.
Yeah.
Helps loosen up your vocal cords as
There
well.
you go. There you go. It does help.
It's purely for medicinal purposes.
There, you've heard it here, folks. For medicinal purposes.
If you're getting a cough, cinnamon whiskey, which, by the way, I just drank some moonshine.
Yes, you did.
I wasn't really, honestly, mentally prepared for. I haven't drank moonshine in a while.
What is it called? It's
Called rabbit spit.
And for those of you that don't understand moonshine, it is the base before it becomes anything else. So it is clear.
So it's legal, is what he's saying.
It's
Yeah.
legal here. Okay.
It's yes, it's
bottle it,
legal
they
in
sell
this
it.
room.
So what's your take on it?
My take is that it's moonshine. It tastes like moonshine. It's you know,
It's not your
It really
salted
fills the
caramel.
palate.
It's
No,
not
it's
your
not
salted
quite.
caramel crown.
It's not quite fruit flavored.
So you're calling Chris and I sissies, basically.
No, I'm calling, I think, myself a sissy because I'm having trouble handling it right now. In fact, I'm sweating. I don't know if you can see that.
Would you like to finish my whiskey? So I
I'll
can
trade you.
finish
Yes,
your-
please. Thank goodness.
Okay. Well, I was just sipping on their whiskey. It's a very good whiskey. I would recommend it for anybody to try. If you are a whiskey fan,
Yep.
it is very good.
So enough selling out from us. We're going to
Yeah.
continue to drink and review these drinks as the podcast goes, but we're going to turn our attention to our guest right now.
Yes.
So this episode's focus is inspired by the commission election that's coming up
Yeah.
and just the overall political air that seems to be going on in 2020.
Right. So David and I are here. We try to stay as fair as possible
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
balanced.
Yeah.
And David here is a political science major.
Yes.
As was I.
I don't know much about politics.
Most people that study it are successful.
Yes.
Fun fact.
Well, so are educators.
Sure, no, you're good.
But so we wanted to bring Deacon to kind of because he was a mayor.
Yep.
What years were you mayor from?
From 2005 through 2014. So 9 years.
He has a very
Most of my
clear-
important development years.
Yeah.
He has a
Yes, exactly.
very clear view on how the commission works and
Yep.
what the role of the mayor is, and so we wanted to bring him in just to kind of explain give
How
y'all-
important it is.
Yeah. And,
Oh, absolutely.
and it's not an opinion; it's fact based on how important it is for
Yep.
us to actually vote for our commissioners.
So what you're not going to hear in this podcast is us endorsing any candidates.
Not at
You're
all.
not going to hear us telling you what to do unless you're not voting, in which case we are going to kind of tell you what to do.
Yes.
Which is
Right.
vote. So
Yes.
I want to talk to you, Deke. The first question I have for you is an easy question. I think it'll
Okay.
help us kind of start this off. A lot of people, when they vote, this is just statistics. This is me knowing some political science insight. They vote in the national elections, but they don't vote in local elections. In your experience, does local government have an impact on the way people live their lives?
It has a huge impact, and it's unbelievable to me. I think the last election last year, our local commission and mayor's race, I think we had 24% turnout.
Wow.
And I told somebody, that's just ridiculous. And they said, well, it was better than Columbia County. And I'm like, you can be proud of the fact that 76% of registered voters just didn't even turn out to vote. And then people want to complain about the commission. So I think we really need good quality candidates in every district. They're out there, but it makes a huge difference. I live on Berkman Road. So you've got that major project going on, which is taking longer than anticipated, but funding for road projects, those are decisions that the commission makes. I will tell you, as we enter this period of explosive growth, I think one thing that local governments do is they balance their resources. So I would say that the commission needs to be putting more funding and more resources into our engineering department or to license and inspection, the departments that will really help accommodate that growth. But, local government's decisions make a difference in people's everyday lives. And sometimes it's disappointing to me that people are just sort of so frustrated. They're like, well, I don't want anything to do with that. But we have a responsibility too.
Right.
So back during the summer, I was doing a speaking engagement, and somebody said, I got the question, how do you fix Congress? And I said, well, I can't exactly tell you how to fix Congress, but I can tell you how to fix the Augusta Commission. There are 5 seats up. I was last year, so I said this year.
Yeah.
3 of those are open. and potentially we'll see what
And
happens.
that means uncontested.
Yeah, uncontested.
Or there's no
incumbent.
There's no incumbent.
But and we'll see what happens with Commissioner size, but you may end up having 4 open seats. And if you could get a group of good quality people to run for those seats, you could really change the, change the vibe of the commission this year. But so many people complain, but then they don't vote, or they aren't willing to offer themselves for service.
Yeah. And that's a big part too, kind of what you mentioned. The commission does a little bit more than just voting on spending money and voting on projects.
Yeah.
They also appoint different committees to take care of individual needs of the city.
Yeah, they appoint to the Development Authority, they appoint to the Coliseum Authority, the Aviation Commission. So, yeah, it's more than just voting on a road project.
And you don't have to just run for office if you want to get involved, too, because, you could talk to your commissioner from your district about being on those committees.
Exactly.
Okay. So, let me ask you this. As a mayor, what does the mayor do in Augusta? I know that that's a tough question to answer.
Well, I would say to a large degree what I found is it is what you make of it.
Okay.
There aren't a lot of responsibilities that are associated with, based on the charter with the mayor's office. You break ties on the commission in the instance of a tie. You're the legal representative for the city, so any lawsuit that's filed against the city gets served to the mayor.
I did not know that. That's a little scary.
So that was always fun. And when I was coming out of office, I'm like, well, this will be nice where I don't get lawsuits all the time.
It'd be nice to get sued a little bit less.
Yes, okay. But I would say that there's this conversation that people have about, does the mayor need more power? And I don't really like the word power. I've said before that the only power that leaders should concern themselves with is the power to inspire. But realistically, there's more influence in that office. I mean, being the mayor of Augusta, Fortune 300 companies their CEOs would take my call. Mm-hmm. So just being the mayor of Augusta has a tremendous amount of influence that goes along with it.
So it's almost like the mayor is kind of the way the CVB sells tourism. The mayor kind of sells the city to employers.
Yes, and I was very involved in our economic development efforts, but I understood, excuse me, the role of the Development Authority is to recruit businesses, and where I came in was I just helped close deals. That was a huge focus of mine. So, whether it was Starbucks or ADP or T-Mobile or Unisys, I was there at the closing table. But I will tell you this. I was speaking at the International Association of Outsourcing Professionals in Phoenix, Arizona, a number of years ago, and talking about how
do you remember the name of that association? That is
I've got a good memory. But
he was looking it up while...
Yeah.
all day.
He was
all
prepping.
day.
No phone in hand.
No phone in hand, that's true.
But I was invited by Monty Hamilton, the CEO of Rural Sourcing Incorporated, who's a good friend of mine, who we helped recruit them when I was in office. But the point of my remarks were that at that point, Augusta, between ADP, Automatic Data Processing, they brought 1,000 jobs to Augusta. Since they're about 2,000, but they brought those back from overseas, really from India. Starbucks brought those jobs back to Augusta, and they initially...
And that's for the plant.
Yeah, and so, for ADP's for their solution center, but Starbucks is for the plant. But initially, it was 140 employees, $170 million investment. They've since basically doubled both of those numbers, but those jobs came back from South America. And then Rural Sourcing was bringing jobs back, onshoring, bringing them back from overseas. So Augusta was really becoming a leader in the creation of American jobs, in the midst of the recession. But I met 2 economic developers out of Missouri, and they said, look, if you've got an elected official that understands economic development, they're worth their weight in gold. But if you've got one that doesn't, you don't want them in the room. And I've often said that, I shared with my colleagues on the commission that if you're constantly, talking about the negative in our community, you're never going to sell anything saying you've got an inferior product. You need to know the strength of your product. And I mean, Augusta's an internationally known brand name for being associated with the Masters and with James Brown and Jesse Norman. Yeah. We've got a good quality of life, a low cost of living. So that was not a difficult sales job for me.
We also have an international author that's a former mayor.
Yes, we do. As a matter of fact,
the change maker.
Yeah, you got to talk about that real quick.
It's my book, which is based on my experiences in 9 years in office, and being a leader, not a politician.
Yeah,
is blowing up in Australia. It's the University of Texas El Paso's Student Engagement and Leadership Program used it in a program they had called Powerful Pages. They found it. I didn't find them. So I'm going down to UTEP to speak.
That's awesome.
In actually next month. But I'm working on getting it into more universities. But it's funny. So many people have read it and they're like, well, it's not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it'd be about politics. And I'm like, well, I can understand that since I'm a former politician. Sure. But it's on leadership. But sadly, people don't associate those two terms together anymore.
So, David, and I might be stealing a question from him.
He might be.
He did curate these questions, but I feel like it's very important for. I've always heard that the city government here in Augusta is different than most.
That is true.
And I think the taxpayers of Augusta need to know why. I think,
or in what way, basically.
In what way is it different? And if you in a most dumbed down. Just explain to every listener here why, maybe not why it's different, but how does it work?
Well, so I believe the National League of Cities, I was reading some statistics years ago.
That sounds like something from a movie.
Yeah. Well, but it was 90-something% of municipal governments nationwide had either a strong mayor or a strong manager form of government. We fall in the category of other. Which we don't. Which, from the best I can understand, it's so consolidation between the city and the county was basically a shotgun wedding. It was because the city was going broke because they were moving funds from water revenues to cover deficits. So it was forced. So it basically was a marriage that was based on mistrust and continues to breed mistrust.
When did that happen?
That was 1996.
Okay. We were born
23 years ago.
Yes. So I guess maybe they didn't want to vest authority too much in one area because I think that the mayor at that point in time could pretty much do whatever they wanted. But it's so now people say, well, should we go with a strong mayor or a strong manager form of government? I believe in a strong manager form of government because for a city the size of Augusta, you want somebody running the day-to-day operations that's trained to do that.
Right.
And then if they do something wrong, you get rid of them. But realistically, I've told people until you change the culture of the commission, there's nothing punitive to stop commissioners from going around the management structure. So even if you went with a strong mayor or a strong manager, they could still go directly to department heads and micromanage, and there's nothing punitive to stop them from doing that. So what you really need to do is change the culture of the commission and have a commission that actually honors the chain of command.
So in Augusta, we have 8 districts, and then we have 2 super districts.
Yes.
And so 10 total commissioners. And for an idea or a motion to be passed, you have to have how many votes? This is whiskey. I would go with whiskey.
Okay.
Yeah.
The whiskey is their best.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay. Well, I'll be the judge of that.
That's fair.
That's why we want you
and
to
if
drink.
you disagree, then you get the bourbon.
Side note, when we did have you on, we drank whiskey.
Yes, we
did.
We did. We drank whiskey from Yellowstone National Park and your Bullet.
I forgot about that.
Oh, I didn't.
Yes, we did.
And now we're drinking local whiskey.
At Augusta and Company.
Yes, we did. Yep. And now we're at Second City Distillery drinking local whiskey. Cheers.
Cheers. So to pass an agenda item, you need 6 votes.
Okay.
So historically, and I'll get into the. Basically, the districts were initially drawn to where, from what I understand, where there would be a racial balance, where you would have 6 or 5 white commissioners and 5 black commissioners. So historically, it basically
This is 1996. You're
1996.
Got it.
But commissioners can abstain. So commissioners could abstain and stop a 5-5 tie from happening and stop the mayor from getting a vote.
Interesting.
So I voted to break more ties than I can remember when I was in office, but I think that's because I never skewed to one side or the other. I had a policy that if I was going to break a tie, it was based on staff's recommendation. Because I'm like, I've got an engineering director that's got his doctorate in engineering. Why am I going to override that guy? Because
Right.
I don't have a doctorate in engineering. So it was pretty.
Who am I to tell him he's wrong?
Who am I to tell him that? But I didn't make decisions based on emotion, and I based it on the best and most accurate information I could find. But all too often, I think with local governments, what we see is they base decisions on emotion. And I've said, sadly, unfortunately, if you want to get the commission to do something, if you pack those chambers with angry people, they're probably going to vote in favor of that. But I'm like, that's basically like I don't have a child, but it's akin to if your child, every time they threw a tantrum, you gave in to them, what kind of a child would you raise? And if you're giving in to the vocal minority on every issue, you're not doing what's right for the vast majority of the people you serve.
Right.
And you talk about votes, and I just happen to know, and Chris happens to know that in your book you talk about a lot of this stuff too, with the vocal minority, doing what's right for the public. So off of that topic, I know that you're a person that how can I say it, is plugged in.
Yeah.
You kind of you're a big part of All in Augusta, which is a capital campaign. Basically to help build up downtown.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what are some projects going into this 2020 election where we're electing these commissioners that are going to decide at least the agenda of the city? What are some projects that you've kind of got your eye on that are coming up?
Really,
that you can talk about?
Really, the main one to me, and I actually had a conversation with the mayor about this last week at the sheriff's gala. So there's $2.1 million in the budget through SPOS funding to extend the commons across Reynolds Street to the river.
Right.
And that to me, I'm like, it has funds attached. You might need more than that, but can't we, because the commons is there to benefit everybody,
Right.
and I've talked to people
Well
about
named, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like, it doesn't discriminate based on race, gender, socioeconomic background. It's there as a gathering spot for everybody. So that, to me, should be something when you've got some funding attached there. And I've talked to candidates that are running for office on that. I'm like, that, it's perceived to benefit one property owner downtown, but who care? I mean, all of downtown is going to benefit. And to me, downtown is the heart of the community, and it's there for everybody. Right. I was talking to Commissioner Sias one time, and he said, so he represents South Augusta. He said, I don't have anything against downtown. He said, people in my district, I come down to a parade and they're all down here.
Yeah.
So that would seem to be something that the commission could reach consensus over, that downtown's important to everybody. When you have visitors in town, where do you take them?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that is very specific. I honestly did not expect you to have something so specific. That's pretty cool.
That's very specific.
Yeah.
Okay.
But unfortunately, and sometimes local governments, and I mean, this is not just governments, it's other organizations, get rather than saying, okay, how can we make this happen?
Yeah.
They want to tell you why it can't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm always a how do we make this happen kind of guy, and so that's a project that you guys can imagine what. So in the All in Augusta campaign, the two primary things that the younger generation sort of rallied around were the extension of the Commons and the James Brown or the Soul Music Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can we talk about the Soul Music Festival? Because we've talked to, I believe, Benish a little bit about that, and the Soul Music Festival has a future in the city, right?
Absolutely.
Benish
Brown. I apologize, all of you guys don't know Benish.
The president of the Augusta Convention. And
Exactly.
Business Bureau. Yeah, they're making progress on that. But that to me, maybe I'm not your typical politician or ex-politician, but I focus on things that bring people together. And I think music, you're at a concert, you're not asking people about politics. You're just there to enjoy the artist. If you're at a University of Georgia game, same thing. I mean, you're there to support your team. And I think as a nation, there's more that connects us than divides us. Most people want to live in clean, safe communities where they can educate their children, they have access to good jobs or jobs in general, and healthcare. So if we could start there, but I mean, everything we're seeing in politics is just, I know most people, I think in communities or in the nation, there's a bell curve.
Yeah.
And most people are in the center of the bell curve. They're either center right or center left. But all we see in the media and politics is the extremes. And most people I know are not extremists. But I think that's why the book is really hitting home with people and touching a nerve, is that I'm actually speaking to people that feel like they have no voice in the nation in a way.
And actually, there's, speaking of kind of working together, one thing that we're paying attention to is, of course, we've mentioned a couple times the commission race, and one thing that Chris and I have talked about a lot recently is how the private sector works with the government to make change happen. So something that I think is probably
for the long term.
In the long term. So something that's probably a misnomer is, for something to happen downtown, the government has to be behind it.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case, right? So can the private sector work with the government? What are some ways that I guess we see that coming up, or some opportunities for that?
Well, and that's one of the things that I've shared with commission candidates. I'm like, and I'll just say, Corey Johnson is a good friend, Sean Mooney is a good friend, but we have to establish a better working relationship between the business community and the commission. At this point in time, at times it seems like it's adversarial. When the commission initially wanted to grandfather in the strip clubs downtown, well, the general public goes ballistic, and I'm like, if there had been that dialogue between the business community and the commission, somebody could have said, hey, you guys might not really want to go there.
Right.
But instead, it became packing the commission chambers with people.
Yeah.
So the private sector has a huge role to play. It's basically public sector investment is meant to mitigate the risk of the private sector. And I'd say that. So when I was in office, we built the convention center, we built the new law enforcement center, we built the new library, we built the new judicial center. So, but between what the
none of them are named after you.
No, but and shouldn't be. But I was at a conference or a meeting last week that Augusta Tomorrow had.
Okay.
And I was thinking in the meeting, I told somebody that was there, it would be interesting to see in our urban core over the past 10 years how much the public sector has invested versus the private sector. And I think the investment there on the public sector side would have to, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, but I don't think we've had hundreds of millions of dollars of private investment.
So it's time to see the private investment go up.
But why, we need to ask the question of why is that? What can local government and the business community do to make it easier for the private sector to invest downtown?
So tell me this then, with that being the case, and after this, I'm going to let Chris ask our final question, because I've been nerding out a little bit. Probably asking more than I should.
He's all told us that he has majored in poli-sci every episode,
Right.
so we'll let him have his
I have to. This is my episode.
This is
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's Deke's episode, but
It is.
featuring
It
me.
is. But yeah.
It's a collaboration.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'm
not-
just here.
Not that you have. Thanks for setting this up, Chris.
Yeah, man. Just drinking some whiskey.
So, not that you have a problem getting in front of the commission, but if the commission was to bring you in and ask you for your advice for how to manage the new commission starting in 2020, how to manage, what to prioritize, some general advice for them, what advice would you give the new commission in things to focus on in Augusta?
Well, really, my advice would be, first off, work together. I mean, it's one of the things I've had conversations with candidates about is it seems to me, looking at it from the outside, there's no trust within our local governing body. And it's difficult to build trust if, you say something to your fellow colleague in confidence, and the next thing it's in the news that night.
Right.
So focus on building trust, build those priorities. Once again, I will tell you, my opinion is the explosive growth starts this year when we get boots on the ground and with Cyber Command out at Fort Gordon. But growth comes with its own set of issues. And I said that before I left office. I'm like, the major dialogue we should have is how are we going to accommodate this growth? We've been fortunate that we passed the T-SPLOST while I was still in office. So our transportation infrastructure is improving to help accommodate that growth. But they need to have big picture conversations and not get bogged down in the minutia, which is, it seems to happen all too often. And, I like all of our commissioners. I mean, they're not bad people, but it's just when you get so internally facing, it's hard to realize that, for all intents and purposes, that they to a degree are the face of the community. And I think some of the stuff we see go on at the Marble Palace is not representative of what the community's like now. I think about, Garden City Social, a bar in downtown Augusta has a 2-hour wait. I didn't see that one coming. But
Have you been there?
He doesn't wait.
He doesn't wait. He doesn't wait.
No, but and we've discussed this. We need to put a younger, fresher face on the community, because that is the face of the community now.
Right.
So I applaud what you guys are doing, but I'm like, here again. Oh, y'all tagged me on this last time. No offense to grandmothers anywhere, but it's not your grandmother's Augusta.
I wish we could name this episode that too, because that was we got such good reviews.
It could be part 2.
Oh, that was nice. So
Then I'm gonna get beaten with a cane by somebody's grandmother.
you're pretty athletic. I think you can.
Yeah.
I think you'd be all right.
I can't. Yeah.
You did the last Ironman, right?
No, I ended up not doing that one.
But you did the one before.
No, I did.
You've done more Ironmans
You've
than
done
both of us
Ironman.
put
I've
together.
done
Yeah.
5 of them.
Yeah, okay. That's way more.
5
than us.
more than the 2 of us put together.
Yeah.
And Chris is a biker.
Well, but so the book is on leadership, but I'll talk. I mean, I know we probably got to go, but I was doing the Ironman this year in honor of Randy Smith, doctor who passed. Great man he used to do it. But so the book comes out. I'm training for the Ironman. I got started a little late, and my sister-in-law she had issues with seizures her whole life, and she special needs, but she went into ICU for 10 weeks, and unfortunately ended up passing. But I didn't want to walk away from the Ironman, but I'm like, okay, I've got to be there for my sister-in-law and my wife. The book, I've got to promote that. So I've got to get something off my plate, and that was the only thing I could do.
Say no more.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I think sometimes discretion is the better part of valor.
And that's the title of this episode. Thank you.
So you asked me to ask the last question.
We do, but
can I ask another question real
No.
quick?
You're not qualified.
I need to.
You
Okay, can ask
me
it.
whatever you want.
The
Okay,
reason
go
why
for
I'm
it.
qualified is because I don't have a poli-sci background.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm speaking for
The everyman.
the taxpayer,
As we call it.
that just moved to Augusta. No, I've been in Augusta for a while, but we have super districts. Can you
Yeah.
explain the role of a super district commissioner, because we have one that we are voting for soon?
That's true.
Yeah.
The super district covers 4 districts, correct?
Yes.
So is it a tiebreaker? What's the purpose of it?
No,
Okay.
I think we need great representation for every district, but I will say, they should have never set the commission up to be an even number. You just never do that with a board of directors.
Right.
But B, do you really, if you've got a really good super district commissioner, that's great. But when you have the mayor that represents all districts
Right.
and people have representation in each district, do you really need another level of representation?
So they basically are overseeing 4 districts. How big is their vote as big as a actual district vote?
It's all
Commissioner?
equal.
It's all equal.
It's all
Okay.
equal. But I will say, somebody asked me, what would help improve local government?
Right.
And it hands down to me, it would be if every commissioner ran at large.
Okay.
So that you would be accountable to the city as a whole, because a big issue that we
And
do
that's
have.
as opposed to by region.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
just exactly as opposed to by district. But right now, it's still, if we do this for this district, we need to do that for that district. And I'm like, that tit for tat just doesn't work, and it hasn't worked since consolidation. But there are still commissioners that sort of think that the consolidation bill or the charter is sacrosanct. We can't touch that. And I'm like, look, and I said it back in office. I'm like, look, that's our business plan. And if you don't update your business plan,
You're supposed to do it every few years.
Yeah, for 24 years now, in business, you're probably out of business. So I think they should be able to have that big picture conversation of, look, it's been, 24 years. Let's look at this document and see what we can improve with it. But when it's just everybody going back and forth with each other, it's hard to focus on the big picture. But I want to give y'all an example. So last week it was announced that the convention center has now exceeded $100 million in revenues produced. So that was a tremendously controversial project. And if we had listened to the vocal minority, it never would have happened. But we were able to build consensus and approve the project, which at the same time we approved funding from the increase on the hotel motel room fee to fund our Laney Walker Bethlehem revitalization initiative. So we broke ground on the convention center 10 years ago. Well, 10 years down the line, it's produced $100 million. We have a neighborhood revitalization project that's nationally recognized as being, one of the best in the country. But if we'd given in to that vocal minority, that never would have happened.
So 10 years ago, that's 2010.
That is 2010.
That's a Mayor
That's
Deke.
crazy.
That was my last election year, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Well, thank you for setting us up with that.
Well, it's it was a difficult, but
It's a game changer.
Yeah, I'll share this with you though. So Joe Riley, former mayor of Charleston, he was mayor of Charleston for like 30-something years.
I've heard his name when talking about Augusta's development before.
Yeah, well, so he was a mentor of mine.
What?
But
Okay,
he-
I've not heard that. That's really cool.
But he told me one time, he said at the local government level, all too often governments get bogged down in arguing over petty issues when 6 months from now, nobody's going to remember what that's about. But if you focus on building buildings, that's what's going to stand the test of time. So every day when if I'd get frustrated, I'd get in my car and I'd go drive around and I'd look at the convention center, the judicial center, the new library, the Kroc Center, which the city didn't build that, but that was not the easiest project to get done. The law enforcement center, and I'm like, okay, this makes it all worth it. We're building buildings.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
I'll let you do the last
Well,
question.
we'll segue real quick, actually. So we need to segue before we hit the last question. We need to thank 2 more of our sponsors.
That's right.
Savannah River Brewing Company,
Absolutely.
who we were just with the Savannah River Brewing people. And
Yes.
guess what? They're still
that?
great people. This is gin, and I thoroughly recommend it. This is bourbon.
It's the Spinning Jenny.
The Spinning Ginny.
It's aged Jenny.
Spinning Jenny.
Spinning Jenny.
Yeah.
I got to drive home now.
I've never.
You will. Don't worry. Don't worry. But while he's contemplating if he's going to drink that,
And
I
feel
will.
free to just leave us some of it if you want.
yeah, it's
will.
whatever. I don't personally need any more. I'm good. But we do want to thank Savannah River Brewery.
River Brewery.
They have done us a number. They have given us a lot of beer.
Clearly, we're not drinking beer this
We aren't.
episode, but we usually are.
But
we
you-
make exceptions
I
for
will
some
say
people.
that this atmosphere at the distillery, if you've ever been here during open hours,
Very nice.
It is very similar to the experience at Savannah River Brewery.
It's true.
Friendly,
inviting.
inviting.
Stuff tastes good.
Everything tastes good.
Right.
there. Yep.
And Savannah River Brewery, they have a Valentine's Day dinner.
They do.
With beer pairings. So definitely check them out for that. They have their third
Caterworks. Caterworks is
Caterworks, who
catering.
we know is great.
Yeah. New Year's Eve was a good time.
They will be there.
Yep.
And they're doing their 3rd year anniversary party soon too.
The next day,
which
the
is
15th.
crazy because when you were in office, Deke, did you imagine that we would have breweries in the city?
I hoped.
There you go.
that-
and now we have 30-year anniversary.
The dream come
Yes,
true.
that and rooftop bars. Oh,
And rooftop bars.
Rooftop bars are coming.
Which we're
more of them are
More
coming.
of 'em
and
are
I'm
coming.
very excited to announce more later. Y'all stick
Chris
with us.
is the rumor king or
Y'all
the
stick
rumor
with
queen.
us.
I'm not sure.
Yes. Hey now.
well,
I do have a crown, but
But it's funny, and it's really cool for me through the book to be able to take lessons learned here in Augusta and actually, have them picked up in other places, particularly in universities. But it's still a work in progress. I mean, we're not there yet as a city,
Right.
but we're making progress.
we are.
But I would say,
You can have that.
when you talk about everything going on, this is Augusta in the now. What you guys are doing is Augusta in the now, and the more that we can put that, show people what's really going on in Augusta. And I go back to economic development. People who are considering moving here need to see the real Augusta and not just what's played out in the commission chambers. Once you get people here, they love it. But
Right.
a reputation for bad politics at times,
Yeah.
that's not helpful.
That's scary for
And I'm-
companies.
The commission candidates that I'm supporting, I'm like, I don't want anything from you. All I want a commission I can be proud of.
Is
And
there
I
a
think
way-
that everybody should.
Is there a way off podcast that people could find out who you're supporting for the commission?
Yeah. They can email me at dekecopenhaver.com.
Perfect. I think that's a really good piece of information for people. We obviously will not be promoting anyone officially, but we do promote you and we promote your opinions. So I think that would be really great.
Well, and I will tell you, David, basically, when I first ran, I was like, okay, look at my resume, and if you were going to hire a mayor out of these candidates, who would you hire? So my support for commission candidates, and I would ask your listeners to consider it that way. Okay, if I was going to hire somebody to represent me as a commissioner, who would it be?
Yeah.
Don't do it, well, he's my buddy, he's my friend's cousin. Just
he
look
seems
at it.
nice.
Yeah, he seems nice. Look at it as who's the most qualified candidate and support the most qualified candidate.
And I think that we at least are with you when we hope that everybody does that.
Yeah.
What we would love to see is kind of a changed face of the commission. And we would love to see the Depot project. We would love to
Yeah.
see something happen with that. We would love to see, Unity building the new James Brown Arena.
Oh, absolutely. And that we need, but we need consensus. And so on the commission, we need consensus builders. But I will tell you what concerns me sometimes is people that are candidates for office that spend a tremendous amount of time on social media. I'm like, if that's what you're focused on doing, is that really making a difference? Or are you out there rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty and making a difference?
Yeah. There's a difference between doing politics to get reelected and doing politics to make a difference.
Exactly.
There's a big difference. So we are preparing right now for the last question of the interview.
Most people already know,
Most people already know.
but it's a little different.
But it's a little different because we've already had Mr. Deke on before.
Yes.
So we can't rehash the same question, or can we? And
But before we do that,
Before we do that-
we want to let y'all know.
this question is sponsored by Augusta and Company and the Convention and Visitors Bureau,
Which is the same thing, if y'all don't know that
but
already.
a little bit different. So
Yes.
if you're out of town and you're coming in town, you deal with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which they help book up all of the hotels and the convention center that Deke brought to Augusta.
Yeah.
They
It was a
helped fill
team
that-
effort.
Team effort.
That Deke was on the team to
Yes.
bring to Augusta.
But
They fill that up.
if you've listened to our episodes in the past when we had Benish Brown on, he did say that his team is doing something completely new, and their visitor center is Augusta and Co., which
Augusta
is
and
a
Company.
pop-up slash, you walk in and you see everything
It's
local.
a boutique.
It's a boutique.
local
Yeah.
boutique.
But it's a visitor center. And it also has the only public restrooms. If you want a little tip.
Don't tell anybody.
They've got but it's a cool place. They've got an
Yeah.
events board. They've got
Yeah.
pictures. They've got board games based. They've got Augusta Monopoly.
Yeah.
They've got a book by a former Augusta mayor.
It's called The Changemaker.
I've heard it's pretty decent.
Actually, we have both read it.
We've both read
and
it.
I could not put it down. It is definitely a great read. You need
Looking
to
at the
listen to
spine, you can tell that Chris didn't put it down. I wish I had it to show you.
it. Ooh, it was bad. There's sand. There's
fantastic.
beach sand all up in the pages. It was
Nice.
terribly taken
That's what
care
we
of.
like.
Yes.
That's what we like.
That's what we like. And Chris apologized when he gave it back to me, and he said, "Oh, I put some work in on this book." I was like, "I'm happy that you put work in on
Right.
the book. 'Cause
Yeah.
What else are we doing with it, right? Like,
exactly.
Actually, I didn't tell you this, but
Oh, crap.
2 other people borrowed it before I gave it back to
well,
you.
at least I helped spread
So,
some knowledge.
You
Yes,
let
you
me
did.
borrow a signed book by Deke, and 3 people enjoyed it.
I'm surprised no one stole it, honestly,
No.
or at least rip the autograph out.
Yeah, there you go.
So with all that being said, we're gonna round back to you, and the question for you is, we always ask people at the end of the episode what dropping the disc from the city means to them personally. We've got an answer from you on the record.
Yep.
It was already perfect. We don't want to hear it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we want to hear is another perfect answer to this question, which is, what advice would you give to the people of Augusta, the everyman of Augusta, to drop the disc in their everyday life?
That's a really good question. I would just say, proceed with a sense of civic pride, right? So I've always talked about everybody's in the business of economic development and should be an ambassador for Augusta, because having worked with the Development Authority, when big projects are looking to come here, they're eating in our restaurants, they're interacting with local citizens. And it's sort of that, there was an old commercial that said, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So
Absolutely.
remember that you're an ambassador. I don't care what you do or, what your job is or what age you are or what anything. It's you are an ambassador for Augusta, and we need to all see it that way. And, take care of your city. It drives me crazy to see people throwing trash out of window or whatever. But it's the same thing. Organize a neighborhood cleanup. If you see trash, go pick it up. Don't wait for somebody else to do that. I mean, take ownership in your community, because it's here for all of us. And whether you're in South Augusta, East Augusta, West Augusta, it's all Augusta. There's no us and them. It's all us. And so we need to look at it that way.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a perfect interview.
This has been great.
This has been fantastic. Deke, thank you so much for being at this interview. Thank you for agreeing to try out this spread of drinks that we put in front of you.
And thank you for providing them.
He had no choice, but he had no complaints.
Yeah, well, the Super Bowl was last night.
The
so
Super Bowl was
That's
last
true.
night. By the way, who did you pick?
I was pulling for the Chiefs just because it had been so long since they won it.
Are you an Andy Reid guy?
And I like Andy Reid. I like Mahomes. I think he's a transformational quarterback. But I do, being a Falcons fan and watching what happened with the Patriots, to have it happen again.
It was nice to see
And
someone else.
Oh my gosh. I was watching SportsCenter this morning, and Stephen A. was just
Oh, he tore Kyle Shanahan. a new
he
one.
tore Shanahan apart. He's like, dude, how did you did it twice? And I'm like, poor Shanahan. Maybe he'll win it next year though.
The rumor is the Falcons curse moved to San Francisco.
Yeah, that may have happened. 'Cause but I mean, Mahomes is just he was going to get going at some point.
Absolutely.
So I hate to admit this, but so we had dinner at Oliviana and we came home and I was just beaten. So I actually fell asleep watching the game and then wake up and I'm like, what is happening? What is happening? I'm like, the Chiefs are back in it, man.
Yeah. I liked it because it kept me in the game.
It was.
I didn't care who won. I really didn't.
Yeah.
I agree. I think,
And honestly, I didn't put any money in this game because I didn't care about it. So
I think legally, I have to say that I didn't put money on the game either.
right. Well, I have to. I
There's state
figured
laws.
everybody would say
There's state laws.
that same. Yeah, just assume it. Whatever. But I loved it. Patrick Mahomes. He's 24 years old.
He's my age.
No, I mean,
Which is scary to
and
me.
That guy,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, I was talking to somebody about it while I was working out at the Y yesterday, and it's like, okay, Jimmy G seems like a good dude, and Mahomes is a good dude, and Shanahan and Reed. I'm like, it really, you didn't have a bunch of raging
There's
egos.
no bad guy.
No, there was no bad guy. So you could be happy for any of them that win. But I'm like, they sort of represent the sport the way you would want it represented. I mean,
Right.
so if you're a San Francisco fan, sorry guys,
Sorry about
but
it.
you've won it plenty,
Right.
and you probably will win it again unless Shanahan coaches like that in the fourth quarter.
Well, Deke, thank you so much.
Yes, and those of you that are still with us, it's Valentine's week.
It's Valentine's week. Happy Valentine's Day.
We've
Yes.
got again that Valentine's Day at the brewery. If you have no plans, go check it out.
Do it.
The next day, February 15th, Saturday, all day is at the brewery, third anniversary.
Third anniversary.
And if you're part of YPA, we have a meeting. Barclay Bishop is she's speaking.
The speaker.
Barkley is my girl.
There you go.
She is. I mean,
She
awesome.
comes highly recommended.
She will
Yes.
be on the podcast in April. I'm excited about that.
Incredible.
And she'll be speaking. That'll be at Keen Signs and Graphics downtown. Anybody that wants to attend
Anybody that's a professional,
that, there you go. Check it out.
come check it out.
So I was telling somebody yesterday, as a matter of fact, that Barkley used to come on my radio show a lot. And then I had Bethany Davis, who worked with me to do Live Music Wednesdays, and then Virginia Clausen. So Bethany superimposed their three faces over Charlie's Angels and put Deke's Angels on it. How about that?
If we could have a
There you
picture of
go.
that to post, I would love to post that.
I can find that for you for sure.
please.
I'm
Find
so
that.
excited.
Oh,
Yes.
there we go.
I'm so excited. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, not the politician, but the leader,
there you go.
Thank
Deke
you.
Copenhaver,
Oh, the change maker.
the change maker. Nice.